Welcome, beautiful soul. It's time to remember who we are. You were born for this moment, this breath. Nature teaches us and reminds us that whatever it is that we are searching for, that whatever our hearts and souls are longing for, we must know our unlimited power and worth. It's all already within us. So thank you for saying yes to this moment. Thank you for saying yes to this journey. And most of all, thank you for saying yes to yourself. Welcome, beautiful soul. Welcome, beautiful soul. Today we have a very powerful episode. We're going to be talking about an area that affects every one of our lives. For some of us, it's more serious and critical than for others. No matter where you are in your journey, I hope you really tune in to the tips you're going to hear today, to the content you're going to hear today, and to whatever opens up for you in your own inner heart and inner soul. We're talking today about cutting the cord to stress and overwhelm. And I'm going to have a fabulous guest here today. Samantha Tubbs Cruz is a psychotherapist, a family marriage therapist, and an author of a book that I can't wait to share with you all. Before we get there, you know what we do. We like to start with an opportunity for us to connect with ourselves, to connect with our body, with our heart, with our soul by breathing. So I want you to just close your eyes if you're able to safely do this. And we're going to start with simply breathing. And as we're breathing right now, we're not trying to change it. We're not trying to accomplish anything. We're inhaling and exhaling. This is the time that we carve out for us, for ourselves. We carve out time often for so many other people. This is the time that we set aside for us. So with your eyes closed, I want you to imagine that just the way that you hear that beautiful running water, to imagine that water is running through you and washing you of everything that is no longer serving you. We all have accumulated so much. We've accumulated energy of other people. We've accumulated the concern about our to-do list, about what other people are going through, about who we need to take care of. And we're going to let this water be a metaphor for letting ourselves rinse all of that away and settle into this moment. Settle into your body. So that we can ultimately settle into our inner heart. And the power and truth waiting for us already within our inner soul. So keep breathing, and every inhale, see yourself nourished, fortified, replenished, filled with everything that you have need of, everything that uplifts you, everything that strengthens you. We welcome that with every inhale. We remind ourselves that we are loved and cared for, that we are in this moment safe. And so we're going to extend this breath now with 3 rounds of our 5-5-5 breathing, and that's simply inhaling for 5 seconds like you're filling the air in a balloon, and then imagine that we're holding that air in the balloon for 5 seconds, and then we're going to slowly let the air in the balloon when we exhale for 5 seconds. So go ahead, and if you're able to, join me with a nice deep inhale. And hold that air in. And now slowly let it out. And again, take a nice deep inhale for 5. Hold that air in. Now slowly let it go. And then again for the 3rd time, nice deep inhale for 5. Hold it. And slowly let it go. And keeping your eyes closed, return to normal breathing. Maybe you've noticed anything that's moved or shifted. What I do want you to do is put your attention on that inner heart, because that's the place we're going to focus on today. We get to let go of the concern about the outer and focus on that inner beauty, that inner power, and that inner beautiful soul. And so when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes and you can come on back. I always say that breath is such a beautiful metaphor for us to remember that life is like the breath. We receive, we keep in what's for us, and we get to let go all that's no longer needed. And in the process, we are growing and we are being open to so much grace that's here for us, literally within here, our inner heart. I'm pointing to my inner heart and soul if you're listening without watching. Today, the topic is cutting the cord to stress and overwhelm. There is a way. You may not have found that way yet. Maybe you've gotten glimpses of it. Maybe it is something that's fleeting for you, that sometimes you're able to let go of the stress and other times it comes right back and you feel like you're on a seesaw. Today's guest, Samantha Tubbs Cruz, is a fabulous psychotherapist, licensed family marriage therapist. She is also an author of a book you're going to hear me talk about, how to kick the S out of stress. The woman has more experience, accolades. She is nationally certified. She sits on organizations. She serves. She's also, her husband is a pastor, which means that she walks in that. So she counsels as her profession, and she counsels people because of her vocation, serving along her husband and her own gifting and power. And so I am so grateful that you are with us today, Samantha. Those of you who heard me talk a little bit ago in some of the episodes in the past about naked friendship with Vanessa Russell, I have to thank Vanessa Russell for introducing me to her dear friend, her childhood friend, and now friend for, we won't even count the years, Samantha Tubbs Cruz. But because of that connection is how I know Samantha Tubbs Cruz. And I'm so grateful you're here today. So I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And while the introduction, I'm like, who is she talking about? Thank you for such lovely and kind words. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Well, me too, because when we first spoke, just to have our own conversation without Vanessa being a part of it, we went on. And I said, I cannot wait to have Samantha on as a guest, because you are a wealth of wisdom for a time such as now, meaning that there are so many people who have carried on their shoulders, their back, on their heart, all of this burden that has come from a myriad of places, whether that's because of things happening in their own life or with their family members, with their profession, with their resources, their economics, with their health. We could go on and on. There's so many people who are having a challenging time. And so I want you to share, what have you noticed about this season in particular, Samantha, about why so many people are suffering and struggling?
Well, I mean, there's so much going on in the world, today. It really doesn't matter your age. When we think about, kids, our youths, right? Our youths have so much more to deal with than we did. They have so much of exposure to things that we didn't. So, I mean, they're always put in the position to have to make decisions that they really shouldn't have to make. They're put in the spotlight. Social media is one of those things where for a lot of kids, it causes a lot of stress because, they want to fit in. And sometimes, there's no way to fit in when you're measuring yourself with something a lot of times that's just not real, because we all know that a lot of times on social media, you show what you want people to see. And so that's what they're competing against, what what somebody else is showing them. And they want to fit in. They want to be like that person. So that's with our kids, our youth. And, with our adults, we've gone through a lot, from COVID and the recovery period of COVID and trying to get back to life again. And, those who have kids, if you have spouses, job stress. I mean, the list can really, really go on and on in terms of just the different things that's, on our plate. So, as you said before, we can go on and talk about, again and again, we could probably be here all week and talk about just the stressors that people are facing today.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a lot.
So many. You said something so powerful, especially when it comes to our youth. And I know adults. I know in my own life, the journey I had to go through to let go. I didn't have social media growing up, but I did have the conditioned pattern of putting out an image.
Right.
And I didn't even know I was doing it. I was living this image that, I was told, this is who you need to be. This is how you need to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the weight of that was a weight I didn't even know I was carrying, Samantha. In other words, I did it mindlessly. I did it until I finally broke open. And so I think we live in a world that rewards, unfortunately, us for being everything except who we really are. And thankfully, I see a shift happening where more and more people are saying enough of that, and I'm ready to walk in my authenticity.
Yes, yes. I'm seeing it too. I want there to be more of that. And that's really one of the reasons I appreciated your show so much, because I feel like, that's really what it showed, is walking in your authentic self. I think we spend so much of time caring too much about what people think about us, what we're wearing, how we look, how we sound, what we do for a living, and so we try to look the part. And looking the part, oftentimes creates so much of stress within itself.
Yes, looking the part. Oh my gosh, like that is a mouthful right there. We could spend all day on looking the part, because it's, again, all about a construct that's everywhere except inside of us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And coming to the realization that our journey is an inner one as much as it's an outer one, that we need to say yes to getting to know who we are underneath all that facade and letting the real us come through. And I know in my own life, it was not something that I sat out and made an intention and said, okay, today I'm ready to go discover who I am on the inside. It was literally life causing me to have one of those face falling flat on your face moments, where everything just breaks, where all the balls you're holding just fall down, where everything feels like it's falling apart, all of that. And I'm curious, in your own life, how would you sum it up, Samantha, that you have made not only this part of your profession, but how have you lived this out to come to know the woman that you are today versus who maybe you would have been or had been told you were, decades ago? How did you make that growth? I love hearing people's stories about how did you get to where you are today with all this wisdom and all this insight. And most of us didn't come out of the womb like this, or maybe we did come out of the womb like this, but then we just did some other stuff and had to find our way back.
Yeah, boy, it was a journey, and a journey that I'm still on, nevertheless. But, I call it my lemonade story, because there were a lot of lemons, starting out and, in my life. And that's one of the things, I talk about in the book, and it's actually called My Lemonade Story, because, I talk about the fact that at a very young age, I was going through a divorce, and I was a single mother, and trying to work at the same time, trying to go through my period of getting licensed as a mental health counselor. And there was just so much going on in my life at that time. It was just like a whirlwind. Everything was just spinning out of control. And I thought to myself at such a young age, my gosh, I'm just getting started. But it kind of almost seemed like it was coming to a very quick decline. And that felt awful. It felt really bad. I felt helpless. I went through being depressed. I kind of felt like, I don't know about this therapist thing, because here I am thinking I'm, getting started. And before I can get started, it's looking like this is a wrap. Like, and the other thing I was thinking is, who's really going to want to talk to a therapist who doesn't even have her own life together, let alone try to tell somebody else, right? So that's kind of where I was.
I love your honesty about that, because I think if I kind of stopped saying I know that had someone spoken to me the way you are speaking right now to everyone who was listening, I would have known I wasn't alone. That idea of, I have a goal, I'm close to it, but it's all falling apart, and we start questioning our own worth, our own purpose. We wonder, do I have anything to give? And when I read that part in your book, it gave me chills, because I said, how many people go through that in silence and without support, and trying to maintain the facade that I've got it all together.
Right.
When in reality, we're going to hit those moments.
Absolutely.
And you shared that. And so I love how you moved through it. You said the people around you, your friends, tell us how you made it through that. Because if you haven't gone through that and you're listening, Vanessa's mother says something I love to quote. She says, keep on living, because chances are you will hit a moment where you will feel like it's all fallen apart, and that you can't go on. You don't have any authority in your career and your vocation, that you don't have what it takes. And it's exactly the opposite. How and who helped you make it through that?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm so thankful that I just really had such a wonderful support network of friends and family members. So, and I really thought about giving up the career of being a therapist. I think I was like 3 years into it, and I really felt like, hey, I don't think I'm the best person, to do this. And so one of my friends that I shared, I said, I just think that I may be better suited for something else. And she said, well, why would you throw in the towel now? And I said, well, would you listen to somebody who is supposed to have the answers, but who doesn't have the answers? And so what she said to me was, listen, you're going through a rough spot, but I bet you that there's so many other women who have been there or going through what you're going through right now, or who will be going through what you're going through. And you would be a wealth of knowledge and information and support for women who are going through divorces. And I thought about that. And that's what really helped me to, as I say, make lemonade out of my lemons. Because I thought about it. I said, well, I'm going through a divorce, so I definitely will be able to support other people who are going through a divorce.
Yes.
And so I took some time out to do some self-care of my own, right? So I stopped seeing couples, and I just focused on individual therapy and divorcees, and took some time to really work on me. And after I did that, that's really what helped me to kind of, go through this transition and know that I really didn't have to be a perfect therapist. I just needed to be real with where I was, and to help people where they are and where I am.
Well, that's so beautiful, because you are real. The book, it's called How to Take the S Out of Stress. And I was telling Samantha before we started, there we go, today, before we started this, I said, my gosh, I had so many notes on this. There's no way we're going to talk about everything today. I am encouraging everyone who's listening to please consider getting a copy for yourself, for someone you love, someone who's going through a lot. And even if you're not going through a lot right now, read it to be prepared, because you cover so many practical components. I know your clients must love you, because I just love, we can just talk about the stress inventory. The stress inventory, basically noticing that there are physical signs, there are mental signs, there are patterns that we have chosen to cope that may not even be the best. And we can go on and on. So when you're asking people to do this stress inventory, what is the reason that we need to do it? We think we know, like, I'm stressed. What do I need an inventory for, Samantha? Like, I'm stressed already. What do you mean take an inventory of it? What is that part really about?
Yeah, well, it's the awareness, having the awareness of when we do become stressed, to recognize it as such, because we gloss over things. We might get a headache, or we might get a stomach ache, and we just kind of gloss over it. But this
Yes.
helps you to kind of identify, am I having trouble sleeping? Am I having trouble, am
Yes.
I losing my appetite? Am I sleeping
Yes.
too much? Am I sleeping too little? Am I eating too much or eating too little? So it's helping, am I irritable? Am I irritable all the
Yes.
time? Or do I feel like isolating away from people, and avoiding people? So those are just some indicators for us to be aware that, hey, listen, if these things are going on with us, we need to stop in our tracks. Don't aspirin it away. Don't rationalize it
Yes.
away, because a lot of times we collect a lot of these, and then by the time we've collected all of them or a lot of them, a lot of times we've opened ourselves up to, having some medical issues that we now have to address because we ignored the alarms of those mental and physical symptoms. So it helps you very early on to pay attention and not wait until you've collected about 5 of them to say, oh, I think I need to go and talk to someone, or I think I need to go see a doctor about these headaches and the back aches, and I'm having some nausea, and I'm having trouble sleeping. And you want to go early on and not ignore those signs so that you'll be able to manage them effectively.
What struck me is that a lot of the symptoms that you list, because Samantha goes through the mental alarms and the physical alarms, and I thought, like, wow, we rationalize these away. I have rationalized some of these away. I have pushed through, ignored, tried to zip over my own alarms because I thought someone else's alarm was more significant than mine. And I thought I needed to take care of some other people and that mine weren't that important. And so the accumulation component is so real.
Yeah, it is. And just what you said is like somebody else's alarms and symptoms, were more worthy of paying attention to, right, than your own. And that's really one of the more, I think, the bigger components of stress is that we do ignore ourselves, and we don't put that focus on taking care of us. One of the things that I talk about in the book is making sure that you put your mask on first, your oxygen mask.
Yes.
I talk about that because the very thing that you just said, Michanda, that we focus on helping others before, we check in with ourselves to even see if we have the capacity to really help other people. So putting on that mask is really just doing what the airlines even tell us to do, right? They even tell us that, if you get, when you get in on the plane, if for some reason, there is any problems with the flight and the oxygen mask comes down, they walk you through what you need to do with that mask, and the instructions are clear. They tell us to take that oxygen mask and to put it on yourself first.
Yes.
Right?
And speaking of oxygen, you have an acronym for breathe. And I love this acronym because you talk about breathing, B.R.E.A.T.H.E, be really enlightened about thoughts having exit space.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yes. Because I think sometimes when thoughts enter into our minds, that we have to always take them inward. And we don't. We can let them just pass on by. Like, we can acknowledge them and let them just go by.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what that acronym stands for. It's like we don't have to put that thought on and wear it. We can let it have exit space so
yes.
that it doesn't create stress, anxiety, worry, depression, and, anger. We can just let that thought just go on by, just like the clouds. We can just let those thoughts just have the exit space that it needs so that we can keep moving.
Yes, I love the cloud analogy. It's cloudy right here today. But I often talk about if I were to stare at a cloud and they weren't just like the entire sky, that we would see them move. And I like that idea of like
Yes,
the thoughts moving through us.
yes,
And I
yes.
don't have to jump on each one. I don't have to identify with each one. When it comes to relationships, which we all have a relationship, we have one with ourselves,
Mm-hmm,
with other people.
mm-hmm.
And when it comes to our relationships with other people, there will be an opportunity to practice what is not so easy to practice, and that is grace and forgiveness. And I'm going to read this line because I thought this was so powerful. You said, giving yourself or someone else grace and forgiveness may be a good way to prevent yourself from being emotionally incarcerated. And I said, yes and amen to that, because that is so powerful. I love the analogy, emotionally incarcerated. When we forget or refuse or ignore
Mm-hmm.
the grace and forgiveness for ourselves and those we're in relationship with.
Absolutely. It's so enlightening. And people tell me a lot of times that they feel empowered when they're able to give others grace. Because keep in mind, when we hold on to things, we're keeping ourselves stuck. Other people, they're moving on. They're going on with their lives, right? And so when we give others grace and we decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to forgive
Yes.
because number one, I want to be forgiven. But number two, I don't want to stay stuck. I want to keep moving on with my life. So the forgiveness is very much for us than it is, for other people. It's the forgiveness that we need. And yes, we extend that grace, but the forgiveness is so that we don't keep ourselves stuck. And the emotionally incarceration is, I could be stuck with my anger. I could be stuck with my anxiety. I can be stuck with my fear. I can be stuck with my sadness or my depression. I could be stuck with all of those emotions. Do I really want to do that? Or do I want
Yes.
to set myself free?
I love that part because so many of us don't realize we hold the key to the jail that we've put ourselves into. That I literally unlocked the cell, went inside the cell, closed the door, locked it, and I'm still holding the key.
Absolutely.
And I'm still holding the key
Mm-hmm.
because why? My ego will tell me, no,
Mm-hmm.
don't forgive. You're going to be hurt again. Don't forgive because they're going to do this again. It looks like it's permissible. Don't forgive because you're giving your power away. You're going to be a doormat. Like all the things the ego tells us to keep us trapped and forget and ignore that we are holding the key and that we entered into the cell to begin with.
Well, yeah. So I think something about that key. I think that key, we think, it serves a purpose. And, we tell ourselves that, if we give up that key, we're letting other people go.
Yes.
Right? We're letting them go. So I'm going to hold on to this key. I'm holding on. I'm not giving this up. Right? I don't want them to, get away with what they've done. So I'm gonna stay right here. I'm holding this key. I'm gonna stay right in. But the problem with that is those people have moved on. They don't even know you have the key. They don't know you're incarcerated. They don't even know anything about that. You're the only person that really does. And so, so the power truly comes in when we're able to say, you know what? I am not going to stay right where I am all my life. I need to move forward. I need to be doing things, seeing people, going places. I need to live my life. So you know what? My power is in forgiving, because I need to move forward. I need to get out of incarceration. That's where the power is, not in, holding on the key that keeps you stuck.
Yes. When I think about my younger self, I always say, like, what I wish she would know, what I wish I could have given her. I don't know if she would have listened, but what I wish I could have given.
Yeah, that part.
Now, if she would have listened, it would have been something different. But if you could go back and tell anything to your younger self, and let's hope she listens.
Yes.
What would you want her to know?
I think I would want her to know that it's okay for her to shine.
Yes.
I think that, for so many of us, we grow up with different ideals and skills, talents, and everybody has them. And, we're unique. So we have different gifts, talents, capabilities, and, and so when we think about the gifts that we have, giving, I think, myself permission, to accept those gifts, to walk in those gifts, and to shine, and to know that it's okay to do that. I think 100. I'd like her to know. I would have liked her to know that.
Yes. When I hear you say that, it paints the picture of the examples that you give of what it takes to walk through the stress, to let go of the S of stress. And I even want you to provide that explanation of why you chose stress and what the word is without the S, T.R.E.S.S, and what that means and the significance of that.
Oh, listen, it's a play on words, of course. I have a cousin who's, a pastor, and of course my husband is a pastor too. And he invited me to his church, and he knew of the book, and he held the book up, and it was almost like, he had the book and he was reading. He was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this S, what is this about?" I told him, Pastor, the S, it's for stress, and we're getting rid of the stress. And so I told him how, there was a T.R.E.S.S model, and it's based upon the T.R.E.S.S model. And when we think about, getting rid of the S, then we're left with T.R.E.S.S. And so the acronym, and, for T.R.E.S.S, first of all, when we think about what T.R.E.S.S is, T.R.E.S.S is, they could be locks in our hair, curls, it's our hair, T.R.E.S.S, curls, locks, braids. And so what I talked about is oftentimes when we have so much of stress, on our plate, that sometimes, it causes us to just kind of curl up in a knot. And just think about it when you're stressed out, how sometimes you feel like your stomach is in a knot, right?
Yes.
But so we kick that S out of stress, and we have T.R.E.S.S, right? And so when we think about, the T.R.E.S S, we're thinking about, taking time for ourselves. That's what that T is, taking time, for yourself, to make yourself, a priority, something that a lot of people don't do. There's a lot of
Mm.
guilt associated with making yourself a priority, right? But we've learned that we have to put on that mask, and that is making yourself a priority. Because if we're going to be able to pour into someone else, we can't do that without having our own oxygen first, right? And so that R stands for, relaxation. When I think about, what that means, just before, the show, and you taking us through the meditation and just listening to the music and the water, and, how relaxing that was, and just giving yourself a moment sometimes to just unwind. And it didn't take time. It didn't take a whole lot of time when you did, you took us through that exercise. But boy, did it feel so good, to just not think about anything at the moment, but just you, right? And focusing on something that's soothing. So relaxing, so that we don't pour from empty cups. That E, it stands for embracing exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And exercise doesn't have to look like somebody else's exercise regime. It's just, think about movement. How do you like to move? You might like to, your exercise might be walking, it could be swimming, it could be yoga, Pilates. Your exercise could just be, which is one of my favorites. I like to just do line dances. I get my playlist on and I do some line dances. It's great exercise. Moves all of the muscles, let me tell you. And then and then you feel really good afterwards,
Yes,
right?
yes,
You're
yes.
pouring into your cup, right? And then the first S, it talks about setting realistic expectation of
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Because sometimes, we do all this comparison, and we look at somebody else, and we look at, their grass, and we kind of compare our grass to theirs, and we go, ooh, their grass looks so much greener on the other side, right? And then so we set expectations, right, for us, so that we can have green grass that looks just like theirs. Well, it's about, setting expectations that are realistic for you, because you
Yes.
may have so many different things on your plate, so many different things to navigate. It's not important that your grass looks like theirs. It's important that you do the things that you want to do that make you happy, right? And setting realistic expectations of yourself so that you don't overwhelm yourself trying to walk somebody else's walk, right?
I love
Um,
that. Yes,
yeah,
and yes.
and yeah, and so that last S is setting healthy boundaries. You know, Setting healthy boundaries. Sometimes we have to say no to people, and we may not, it doesn't always feel good to say no to people. And obviously when we tell people no, it doesn't feel good to them either, right? Because our yes was serving a purpose in their lives, right? And so when we say no to them, then obviously we're saying yes to us, right? And that's so important, to establish healthy boundaries, so that again, we don't overwhelm ourselves. And keep in mind, we teach people how to treat us. So if we don't have boundaries that govern us, we're also teaching people, not to necessarily respect us, or the fact that we have boundaries. Boundaries protect us.
100. I mean, all of that is so powerful. I hope you all will dive into this book, because what Samantha just outlined, basically, she goes into more depth with specific questions. I love the exercises that you have in here for people to go through. So I feel like you've offered, basically, if someone really went through this with intention and an open heart, like, this is a pathway for some tremendous healing. And it's a pathway to learn a new way of being, ing, of living, so that we don't let go of stress and are healing ourselves of the mindset and the thoughts underneath why we took on so much, and then take it back on in another form, you're really outlining a way for us to live with more presence, to live with more intention, more grace, more love, more compassion for ourselves.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that we can't help other people, but what it does mean is, if I'm going to help you, I want to do my best. And if I'm going to do that, I need to start with me, pouring in to me, so that I'm not pouring from an empty cup.
That part right there, I was taught you will pour when your cup is empty, when it has one drop in it, when it feels like it's rusted, you will find a way to keep pouring. And so, not believing I could ever, what we started with, relax and breathe, that was new to me. I did not know how to do that. And even to this day, there are moments, like you said, the little cloud that will come by, a little cloud might come on by and say, are you allowed to rest for this moment and take a nap? Maybe there's something else you could be doing. And that could turn into a should real easily. I could be doing something else. Should I be doing that? And what pauses it for me is to ask myself, who's speaking right now? Who's speaking right now? This sounds like a voice from your past. It may be my own voice from my own past, or someone else's voice. Who's speaking right now? Right now.
I love that.
Who are you listening to right now? Who's driving this car right now? And where do I really want to go? Because sometimes I think as people, it's so easy to let someone else have the keys to the car. We talked about the keys to the cell. It's sometimes easier to let someone else have the keys to our car and say, I'm just going to go along for the ride because I don't want the accountability. I don't want the responsibility, and I'll just go with it. And the danger and go ahead.
Yeah, but you hit it right on the head. You're right. I mean, like, I don't want to be bothered with, I'll let them just go ahead, but let them go ahead and do it. But the problem with that I see oftentimes in my practice is then they get annoyed and get angry and frustrated, where they end up, like the destination, the place that you end up. Because when you hand over the keys, then you've got to be okay with where you end up. It's really unfair to hand over the keys and say, just go ahead and go, and I'll just be in the back seat. And then you're upset about where you ended up at. It's not the driver's fault if you turned over the keys.
That's so powerful. Wow. Now that right there, another one. It's not the driver's fault if you turned over the keys. How many times have I turned over the keys and then been mad at the driver?
Yeah.
Right? And blame the driver.
Yeah.
And we forget, wait a minute, the driver drove. I gave the driver the keys.
Absolutely. But we do that because sometimes stress is overwhelming, and you just kind of want to sit back and not participate in your journey. But there's no way to do that. You have to participate. You have to show up. And not only that, it feels good when you show up for yourself.
Yes. The part in here where it was so beautiful to me, because I remember that stage in my life when you talked about us getting to know ourselves again. And like, what is my favorite color? What is my favorite ice cream? What is my favorite? And knowing that they can all change. I tell people that all the time. Like, what I say today, don't put it down in concrete, because it's my today answer. My tomorrow answer might look something different. So, so don't think that because I answered you today, you don't have to re-ask me. Or don't think that I may not answer differently tomorrow or the next month or the next week. And I'd like you to share a quote that you had in your book. I don't know if it's your favorite quote, but it's a quote, because you have a quote that I read in your bio, which was beautiful. But I love the quote that you have in here. And I'm going to turn to it so you don't have to like, Michanda, what are you pulling out? I'm going to help you out. So you're not like,
Thank you, Michanda.
so yeah, you're not like, wait a minute, where is she? She's like, she's just going with something. And I love this quote that you have in here, because it's a reminder to me when I look at it that there's so much more than what meets the eye. And so this quote that you have, and now I've lost the page, so everyone has to bear with me for a second, because the minute I brought it up, it's like, okay, now I should have put a bookmark in it.
Do you know what it was about? Like,
yes, it was the basically it was talking about like, how do we remember that we're on this journey, that we loving ourselves, is what I took away from it. So let me see if I can find this, because I just was like, oh my gosh. And then I have bookmarks here too, and like, why I didn't bookmark this is why it's called Beautiful Soul, and we go with the flow.
oh yeah,
because times like this
absolutely.
happen.
Oh,
And I'm like, let me see if I can find this before we wrap up today, because Samantha, you have so many good things in here, and I really want people to understand.
Yeah. I tried, Michanda, because I really want the book to be a reference for a
Yes.
lifetime, not just for today, but a reference for a lifetime. So I tried to put as many ideas and strategies there that would help people, that they can just kind of go back to from time to time. If they get stuck, they can kind of go back and, reread the book. And there's, not only strategies, but there's cruise nuggets in there as well.
Yes, I love that, the play on words there.
Yeah.
And I love how you also took the opportunities to say, how do we do the mini relaxation opportunities, and how can they grow to the point where they're like luxuries, the Relaxanitas. You talked about the small thing. Did you want to highlight a few of those for us?
Well,
Relaxanitas. I love that word.
Yes. A little cute word. Yeah. Well, sometimes I think people, when they hear the word relax, they feel like it's just too much of trouble to go through to relax. It's not. We did that in the beginning of this podcast. And as a result of that, you feel lighter. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. So the Relaxanitas are just really where it may only take about 5 minutes of your time, to do, and maybe even under 5 minutes, right? But just taking that time to sometimes just breathe, taking a good cleansing breath, whether it's 5-5-5 breathing technique or the 4-7-8 breathing technique, just breathing. But then, there are some, other things, that you can do as well. That's like under, meditation, certainly, is one of them. It doesn't take a whole lot of time, to meditate. Some other things that you can do in terms of, just, taking that 5-minute, moment to yourself. It could even be something so simple as sitting down and watching like the flames on a candle, and just doing some gazing at the candles. That's also something that can be relaxing. Aromatherapy is very relaxing. Just being able to smell the different fragrances and aromas. Again, those are all things that are, relaxing, like vanilla, lavender. Sitting down and drinking a cup of tea. Taking a moment just to relax with a, favorite cup of herbal tea, or, decaf tea or flavored tea, whatever kind of tea you like, but just having a moment to just sit down and sip on tea, a good cup of tea. But those things don't take a whole lot of time. And sometimes when we hear the word relax, we kind of go, I don't have time to relax. Well, if you're making that statement, then that definitely indicates that, you certainly could use, a relaxation moment.
Well, that's the quote. You just said it for me about the time to relax is when you don't
Uh-huh.
have time for it. And I was like, I love that. It's like that reminder that like that is the time when we think we don't. And you quoted Sidney J. Harris to
Yes.
say that the time to relax is when you don't have time for it, because we'll say that all the time. That is when we
Hmm.
need to it. And the
Hmm.
other quote you had in here was that you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And I thought that's so powerful. I love that. Those reminders that we think that it's all about everybody outside of us when it really begins here.
It
And
does.
so, whether it's the candle, the dancing,
Yes.
whether it's the journal, whether it's the serenity
Yes.
shower, whether it's, the tips you have are so practical, but more than that, it's your heart underneath it. And truly, Samantha, I hope everybody today could feel, because I feel it, your sincere desire to see people thriving and flourishing
Yes.
instead of suffering and stuck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like it's so important to get, number one, in touch with yourself, um, but to honor yourself. Stress is going to be there. And sometimes there's some things that we can't avoid. But when we really think about it, there are a lot of things that we can do to manage our stress. And so, why suffer in silence? Why, sit down and, allow our stress to control us rather than we control the stress? Because we actually can do that. Now, we can't control other people, but we certainly can control how we respond to other people, right? And so, even that, is a good tip, because sometimes think about the anxiety and the anger, that we experience just because we want somebody else to behave differently, right? And so if
All
we
of that.
know, right, if we know that, what, they're going to be who they are and we're going to be who we are, but guess what? I can respond to them in a way that's best for me so that I'm
Yes.
not losing sleep, right?
Yes. Yes. I say that there's always a lifetime worth of work right here. I don't need to look and try to change anyone else, that I have a lifetime
Oh,
to work on right
absolutely.
here.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
I have a lifetime right here. And so when I think about this lifetime, we're in this lifetime. We can't be in any other lifetime
Right,
except this one.
right.
Um, what is it that life has been teaching you, and what do you believe that you're here to offer and to teach and to show life?
Yeah, I think that, boy, life has taught me a whole lot. I'm gonna tell you, but it is teaching me to value my time. Like, the
Yes.
way that I flow is so much differently than the way I used to. I have become a better steward of my time, right? And so what that means is I spend my time and I make it, I think, a priority. I'm intentional about spending time with people who I value and who value me, people that pour into me. I want to pour into them. So I spend my time, with those people versus maybe people that um they may not even be thinking about me. You know what I'm saying? Or they may not care about spending time with me. But I want to spend time with people who want to spend time with me. So I'm intentional about doing that. I think life is always teaching me. I mean, life is teaching me currently that things don't always happen in the time frame that I want it to happen. Um, but I've learned, and I'm still learning, that the delays a lot of times, they're not necessarily denials, meaning it doesn't mean that I'm not going to get it or it's not going to happen for me. um that a lot of times it's preparation. I'm What I'm going through is preparation. I'm being prepared for what's to come.
Well, I want to say thank you because it's obvious that everything you've been preparing for, you're living and you're sharing it with other people. And so as we wrap up today, I want to say back to you, not just a thank you, I want to say, please continue to be the brilliant light that you are. Please continue to say yes to the gifts inside of you. Please continue to honor the truth within you. Please continue to be gentle and compassionate. Please continue to remember that every moment is way beyond what our little minds could ever digest. It's about an unfolding. It's about a destiny. It's about a gift that has already been deposited in us. And sometimes that gift is being refined. And Samantha, I want you to know that you have a powerful path. Of course, you are changing lives, those lives that you can see and that you can touch, and so many that you may never see or ever touch. And still, your life is a light to them. And you are living that out in powerful ways beyond what you can imagine. And I want you to fully give yourself permission to keep dreaming, keep expanding that vision, and keep knowing you are worthy of everything that you could ever imagine or dream.
Wow.
Because you're living it out in a way that cares about this generation and the generation beyond, says, yes, you are here for the fullness of it all. And you are so worthy and deserving of all the joy, all the peace, all the blessings, all the abundance. And be confident in knowing that receiving it is an opportunity for us to see what it's like to live as purpose and as love and as light. So I want you to receive it.
Yes.
And keep being the fullness of who you already are. So that's my hope for you today.
Yes, thank you so much. And I do receive it. I thank you so much for just allowing me the opportunity, to be on the show, but also to talk about stress, because I'm very passionate about mental health. I really am. And so any opportunity I can get to share with others, even if it's one tip, and if that tip helps to make their life better and less stressful, then I feel like I've contributed.
And then
that's what I'm here for.
And then some. So you can find her book on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble. Again, how to kick the S out of stress. You can also find Samantha Tubbs Cruz on her website, Empowered Minds. It's MINDZ, empoweredminds.com. I hope you will let her know in the comment section what you gained from her today. Maybe you can send her a thank you. Let her know something that you appreciated today. And we certainly, again, Samantha, we appreciate you. And all of you who have joined us, we say thank you as well. Thank you for being here on Beautiful Soul. May you continue to walk in the fullness of who you are. Thank you. Thank you, beautiful soul, for remembering who we are and for making time and space to be with us today. As you go forward on your journey to the known and unknown places, continue to listen to your inner heart and honor your soul, because your answers are always within you. Please consider supporting us and spreading more light and love with this message by simply liking the video below, subscribing, and consider sharing as well. Most of all, take gentle care and breathe. We see you. We thank you. Beautiful soul.